This is a story that seems simple, but it hides a secret that very few can discover. A 300-year-old mystery that challenges human morality. Three identical doors. Which is the door to salvation? Can you find the hidden keyword in this story? Comment your answer, subscribe, and prepare for more stories full of enigmas. Ethan Vance, a 32-year-old historian and research fellow at the prestigious New England Research Foundation in Boston, believed only in what he could prove. His life was a neat stack of annotated primary sources, but that meticulous order was shattered by a solicitor's call. He'd inherited a house in Salem, Massachusetts, from an ancestor he'd never heard of, a colonial judge whose role in the infamous witch trials was historically ambiguous. The city of Salem, with its tourist-driven atmosphere masking a deeper, darker history, felt like a jarring contradiction to Ethan's rational mind. Along with the antiquated deed, he received a single, heavy walnut box. It wasn't locked conventionally. Its entire surface was covered in complex, non-repeating geometric etchings, suggesting a sophisticated mechanical cipher. Ethan spent days frustrated, finding no hinge or seam. This was more than an artifact. It was a personal challenge from the past. He sought out Leah Chen, 28, a brilliant cybersecurity engineer who treated physical mechanisms with the same logical precision she used to break encrypted firewalls. Leah's small apartment near Harvard Square, humming with high-tech equipment, became their decryption lab. "It's not a lock, Ethan," Leah pronounced, using tiny sensors to map the carvings. "It's a sequence mechanism built on kinetic energy. The code is a rhythmic pattern of pressure tied to the wood's grain, designed to be opened only by someone who understands its internal tempo." They pored over the clues, finally linking a faint recurring motif on the box to a symbol woven into the vellum of the deed. Leah proposed the combination: 3 quick taps, followed by a sustained deep press and a final soft release. Click. The latch mechanism yielded with a soft, expensive sigh. Inside, nestled on red velvet, were 2 items: a brittle, yellowed, and incomplete vellum map marked with cryptic symbols, and a weighty, polished silver medallion. The medallion was etched with 3 intricate circles, interlocked like a forgotten coat of arms. Leah noted the medallion was remarkably warm to the touch. The map clearly indicated a route to the inherited house, ending abruptly at a point labeled Undercroft. Driven by the historian's thrill of discovery, they drove to Salem. The inherited house stood cold and foreboding, its gray clapboard weathered by centuries of New England salt air. Following the map, they descended into the dank stone cellar. The air was colder, thick with the scent of damp earth and antiquity. The map guided them to a massive dust-covered bookcase. Using modern crowbars against colonial engineering, they leveraged the stone. With a final terrifying groan, the entire shelf slid away, revealing a dark stone passage leading deeper into the bedrock. They proceeded cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. The passage opened into a small, acoustically dead chamber. The silence was broken by the gasps of Ethan and Leah. Before them stood 3 towering, identical oak doors, massive and formidable, bound with thick iron bands. Above the central door, carved into the stone lintel in stark, uncompromising letters, was the terrifying warning: 3 doors, 1 saves, 2 condemn. The silver medallion fit perfectly into the circular depressions of all 3 doors. It was the key, but it could only be used once. Ethan felt a chilling, profound realization. This wasn't merely a puzzle from the past. It was a moral judgment inherited across centuries. The weight of his ancestors' secret crashed down. Leah gripped his arm, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. "We found them," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But which one do we dare to open?" The 3 identical doors waited, silent and immense, concealing the terrible final truth of the 2 paths to condemnation. The pressure of the inscription, "1 saves, 2 condemn," was immediate. The total lack of identifying marks on the 3 identical doors was a deliberate feature of the test. They needed to find the source of the condemnation before committing the key. As they ascended the stone stairs, they heard a faint rhythmic sound from outside the cellar door. They found the door slightly ajar. Standing among chaotic rose bushes, seemingly pruning them in the fading light, was their neighbor, Anya Petrova, 45. She was small, intensely focused, and wore a patchwork of old handmade clothes. She didn't look up but spoke directly to them, her voice low and gravelly with a subtle Eastern European accent. "I see the Undercroft has called its new caretakers," Anya said, her acknowledgement confirming her knowledge of their secret activities. "Your great-great-grandfather was a man who understood the burden of integrity. Salem remembers its choices, Mr. Vance." Ethan attempted a polite introduction, but Anya interrupted, her gaze fixed on the ground. She pointed not at the house itself, but at a partially collapsed, moss-covered stone gazebo in the corner of the yard. "Before you look for answers in the dark, you must find the light that reveals the truth. The judge left his legacy written in plain sight, in the stone and the light, not hidden in the soil," she instructed, her piercing eyes briefly flicking to the medallion hidden in Ethan's pocket. "And your silver key. It is not just a key. It is the first sacrifice." Without another word, she resumed her pruning, dismissing them with complete authority. Anya's cryptic words resonated with Ethan's knowledge of the period. The judge, living in an era of paranoia and coded communication, would have used architectural ciphers common among certain colonial societies to hide information in plain view. They raced back inside, pulling out the vellum map again. Leah's engineering mind focused on the light element. She noticed the map's markings correlated not to physical objects, but to how shadows and light fell across the main floor at specific times of day. They waited, tension mounting, until the late afternoon sun slanted through a narrow diamond-paned window in the foyer. The light fell perfectly on a section of the stone floor, illuminating a series of incredibly faint, intricate etchings that formed a sequence of 4 geometric symbols: a square, a triangle, a star, and a broken circle. Leah instantly recognized the pattern as an old-world substitution cipher, referencing the 4 main carved elements of the massive stone hearth in the drawing room, a feature dating directly back to the judge's era. Working against the rapidly fading daylight, they matched the symbols to the carvings on the hearth. The first set of letters was rapidly decoded, revealing a chilling message about one of the doors. Ethan rapidly transcribed the final letters. The message, stark and clear, detailed the nature of the first door, the one offering condemnation. It read, "The door of the gilded cage. Its beauty is its bondage. Beware the touch of Midas's curse." But just as they absorbed the horrifying warning about temptation and greed, Leah pointed to a small, fresh indentation beneath the writing, a tiny, subtle scratch that had been made recently. They looked up, adrenaline spiking, realizing the front door of the house was now slightly ajar, having been closed only moments before. The Salem fog was creeping silently inside, confirming they were not just solving a puzzle, but were being actively monitored by the enigmatic Anya or someone else entirely. The cold certainty of being watched sent a jolt of alarm through them. The faint scratch near the decoded message was a clear signature of an observer. They quickly closed the front door, locking it securely, their focus now intensely fixed on the warning, "Beware the touch of Midas's curse." Midas's curse is about greed, Ethan reaffirmed, his historian's mind placing the warning in the context of Salem's economic conflicts. "It's the ultimate temptation, a test of material desire. Door A is condemned not because it hides a physical danger, but because of what it offers." They returned to the cellar, the weight of the judge's test now pressing down on them. They were determined to confirm the condemnation without sacrificing the silver medallion. Leah, the meticulous engineer, refused to proceed on theory alone. She meticulously examined the stone jamb of door A, searching for any structural weakness. Her persistence paid off. She found a series of tiny, expertly drilled holes, almost completely hidden by centuries of dust, inspection ports. They were designed for the judge himself to check the mechanism without opening the door. Leah carefully threaded a miniature, flexible fiber scope from her specialized kit into the highest port, and the feed flashed onto her phone screen. What they saw was breathtaking, silencing any residual doubt about the stakes. The chamber behind door A was not a dungeon or a pit. It was a cavern lined floor to ceiling with glittering piled-up gold and jewels. Chests overflowed with silver artifacts, shimmering chalices, and dazzling necklaces that reflected the scope's beam like a fire made of wealth. It was a staggering, impossible fortune, the legendary, hidden colonial treasure of Salem. "It's real," Ethan breathed, his scholarly detachment momentarily giving way to raw awe. The sheer magnitude of the gilded cage's lure was instantly potent. Leah, however, was already focused on the danger. She zoomed in on the floor near the threshold. "Look closely, Ethan. See those thin, dark lines carved into the stone, almost perfectly blending with the natural texture? They're pressure plates, incredibly sensitive." She then panned the scope to the mountain of gold. "And those thick, coiled chains scattered throughout the gold. They're spring-loaded, ready to shoot out and lock down." The truth of the Midas's curse became horrifyingly clear. Door A was the perfect trap for the avaricious. Stepping across the threshold to claim the gold would trigger the plates, causing the chains to lash out and instantly ensnare the visitor, sealing them inside the gilded cage forever, a prisoner of their own overwhelming desire, surrounded by worthless, untouchable riches. The condemnation was psychological and perpetual. They had successfully decoded the first moral condemnation. Now, they needed clues for the remaining two. Leah began a systematic search for inspection ports on the next door, Door B, the potential route to salvation. This one was different. Its seams were tight and impenetrable. There were no ports, suggesting its mechanism was protected by a much higher level of secrecy. Ethan pulled out the original vellum map, turning it over and over. He realized the missing part of the map wasn't simply torn off. The paper felt unnaturally thin in one large section. Leah quickly swept her UV flashlight across the spot. Slowly, an ancient Latin phrase, written in the judge's elegant looping script, began to glow into existence. The phrase translated to a chilling instruction regarding the next door. "The key to freedom lies in what you value least, given willingly." As the UV light began to fade the fragile ink, Ethan read the final symbol that appeared at the bottom of the page. It was the 3 interlocked circles from the medallion, but with a clear scratch running through the center of the middle circle. The true sacrifice was now undeniably linked to their only key. The UV revealed inscription. "The key to freedom lies in what you value least, given willingly," defined the moral axis of the test. The presence of the scratch on the medallion symbol on the vellum confirmed that their single precious key was the object of necessary loss. The judge wrote that the true salvation is found in giving up what we believe is necessary for survival, Leah articulated, holding the silver medallion. "We rely on this object for access, safety, and power. Therefore, salvation requires us to break our reliance on it, proving our integrity." They scoured the dusty cellar workshop, searching for context on this radical requirement. Buried under colonial-era debris, Leah unearthed a small, iron-bound journal. It wasn't a court record, but a book of moral observations and parables. The private log of the secret society the judge belonged to, dedicated to testing human character. A key entry, dated 1693, defined the chamber's purpose. "I established the test of the 3 doors to stand against the hysteria of Salem. For fear and greed corrupt faster than any true maleficence. The one who seeks the gilded cage seeks bondage. The one who flees the 3rd door seeks condemnation by inaction. Only the heart willing to divest itself of its dearest protection finds the path to the legacy of integrity." The journal confirmed the door's meanings. Door A, greed; Door C, fear; and Door B, salvation by sacrifice. The judge's explicit phrasing, "legacy of integrity," resonated deeply with Ethan, providing the central moral lesson of the entire ordeal. Subtle clue. 1. Integrity is the theme and the hidden moral core. Suddenly, a series of rhythmic, low tap-tap-tap sounds echoed from the staircase. Anya Petrova was back, standing in the fading light, tapping the stone wall 3 times, pausing and repeating the sequence. She didn't look at them, but her voice carried clearly. "Mr. Vance," she called down. The judge's lesson was simple. If you hold the key, you hold the power. If you use the key for yourself, even to escape, you become the prisoner. The greatest wealth is the knowledge of what you are willing to lose. Anya's tapping rhythm was the exact sequence Leah used to open the walnut box. Leah quickly rushed to door B, the door of salvation. She found a thin, barely visible slot, far too narrow for the entire medallion. Leah inserted a thin piece of metal into the slot and, using her analysis app, tapped the numerical sequence 527, derived from the tonal frequency of Anya's rhythm. Nothing happened. The slot remained inert. Leah's face fell. It still requires the sacrifice, she realized, looking at the precious silver medallion. The code is useless without the metal itself. We have to commit to destroying the silver to activate the sequence. Just as they grappled with the unthinkable act of destroying their only means of escape, the grinding sound of the massive stone bookshelf above them began again. The entrance to the chamber was slowly, inexorably, sealing shut. They had delayed too long, and their path of retreat was vanishing beneath the weight of the judge's timer. The terrifying sound of the stone bookshelf grinding shut, a sound that signaled their total confinement, shook the chamber. Leah frantically tried to push the shelf back, but the hidden mechanism was too powerful. They were now trapped, sealed between the three judgments. "We delayed for door A, and now we're paying for it," Leah said, her voice strained. "If we panic and rush door B now, we risk condemnation by impulsive action. We need to focus on door C." The third door, door C, represented fear, condemnation by inaction. The timer, which had just sealed their exit, was its primary mechanism. Behind a heavy stone wash basin in the cellar area, they found a second, roughly scratched inscription that provided the core psychological lesson. To fear the right choice is the greatest flaw. The judge's test was pushing them toward a courageous moral decision. Leah, systematically inspecting the iron banding of door C, noticed a single cryptic word almost entirely hidden by soot. "Wait! Why would the door of inaction tell us to wait?" Ethan asked, baffled by the paradox. Leah's engineer's mind focused on the data. It's a feint. The judge, a master of psychological pressure, knew that telling a fearful person to wait leads to inaction. But to us, the word is a condition. Leah quickly cross-referenced the tiny celestial etchings she found near the word wait with historical New England almanacs. The pattern corresponded to the precise alignment of a celestial marker with the house's architecture, an event that only occurred at high noon. "This door isn't meant to be chosen," Leah concluded. "It's meant to be endured until the time is right. The true condemnation of fear comes if you choose it prematurely, or if you simply let the passage close and doom yourselves through passive resignation." With a final sickening thud, the passage to the main house was sealed by a thick, heavy stone slab. They were completely committed. Their only path forward was a correct choice among the three doors. Ethan pulled out the silver medallion, convinced they had to commit the full sacrifice to door B. But as he raised it, determined to smash the key into the slot, a small piece of loose mortar fell from the ceiling of door A, the gilded cage, dislodging a final unexpected artifact tucked into the stone lintel. It wasn't gold. It was a single dried rosebud tied with a faded ribbon. Inside, Leah found a note in Anya's modern script. The scratch on the circle means the other key. The key to the truth is not the metal, but the mirror. Salvation requires sight, not silver. The note revealed their understanding of the sacrifice was fundamentally flawed. The key wasn't the material, silver, but the reflection, sight. Leah quickly analyzed the medallion again, realizing the scratch on the symbol was actually a fault line. The heavy silver disc, their precious key, was a locket. The revelation that the medallion was a locket meant the scratch was a literal division, not just a symbolic one. The sacrifice wasn't destruction, but division, a surrender of the key's wholeness. They carefully pried the locket open. Inside were two miniature portraits, one of the colonial judge and one of Sarah, the innocent midwife he had secretly worked to save from the Salem hysteria, confirming his hidden moral purpose. Crucially, the judge's portrait was engraved with the number 2. Sarah's portrait had the number 3. "It's a two-part key representing the moral equation," Leah exclaimed. "The base sequence is 5-2. The final digit is the moral choice between 2, the judge's power, authority, and 3, Sarah, the life saved, innocence. The true sacrifice was now threefold: division of the key, surrender of total control, and the correct moral choice of the final number. The judge's journal emphasized the legacy of integrity. Subtle clue. 2. The division of the key and the numbers 2 and 3 represent conflicting moral values: authority versus innocence. Ethan, the former skeptic, felt the subtle pull of the 2. It represented the power of the system and his own authority as the heir. Leah, however, argued for 3. The judge defined integrity as the willingness to lose what is dear for the greater good. The number 3 represents the innocent life saved by the judge's ultimate sacrifice of his own reputation. "The salvation is in the act of preserving life, not preserving power," Ethan conceded. His temptation to choose 2 was his own final internal test, the lure of control. The selfless choice was 3. "The choice is yours," Ethan declared, handing Leah the judge's half. "Use the number that proves our integrity." Leah took the half locket, which now symbolized the role of the protector. She positioned it over the slot of door B, preparing to commit to the final code 523. Just as Leah prepared to enter the final sequence, a deep, resonating thud echoed from the stone floor beneath door C. The internal mechanism had locked, punishing their sustained moment of hesitation. They knew the window for salvation was closing rapidly. The decision was now life or death, based on a single number. The final lock of door C solidified their situation. The path of fear was sealed, forcing their focus completely onto door B. The tension was immense. If 523 was wrong, they would be trapped forever. Leah, with unshakable resolve, inserted the judge's half of the locket, the number 2, into the slot on door B. It fit perfectly, but only halfway, stopping against an internal mechanism. She pressed the remaining sequence on the frame beside the slot. 5, 2, 3. The door did not move. Panic threatened to overwhelm them. Had they chosen the wrong number? Was the salvation itself a final, cruel trap? Leah pulled the half-locket back out, examining it desperately. The judge's journal said, "The key to freedom lies in what you value least, given willingly. We willingly chose the path of 3, but we only sacrificed the half that wasn't Sarah's portrait. The judge is making us confront the value of honesty and full commitment." Ethan immediately understood the judge's ultimate demand. They had to sacrifice the final piece of the key, the half that represented their moral decision. The test was not in choosing the right path, but in proving their conviction by surrendering the symbol of that conviction. Leah took the remaining half, the portrait of Sarah, the number 3. She knew this was the final, total commitment. She didn't press the code this time. She simply inserted the last remaining part of the key into the slot on door B. It slid in fully, snapping shut with a soft final click. The key was now completely gone, the total sacrifice made. With a deep, powerful metallic groan that shook the entire chamber, the heavy oak door did not swing. It slid sideways into the stone wall, revealing a softly glowing room behind it. They had passed. As they looked into the revealed room, no gold, no danger, a low, deliberate cough came from the newly opened threshold. Standing there, bathed in the room's soft light, was Anya Petrova, the guardian, holding a flickering lantern. Her presence confirmed the end of the test and the beginning of the true revelation. Anya Petrova smiled, a deep, satisfied expression on her face. "You passed the test, Mr. Vance. You surrendered your total protection and chose the value of the innocent over the lure of control. The choice was not about the metal, but the soul." Ethan and Leah stepped through the opening. The chamber behind door B was not a vault of gold, but a perfectly preserved colonial library and study. Shelves lined with ancient texts filled the space, and a large colonial-era desk stood in the center, bathed in the soft, warm glow of a hidden light source. The salvation was knowledge and proof. The open book on the desk was the judge's secret ledger. Ethan eagerly read the final entry. "The test is complete." If you stand here, you have overcome the curse of Midas, greed, and the paralysis of the self, fear. The two condemned doors are not prisons of stone, but prisons of the soul. My true legacy was not the witch trials, but the secret society I formed to save the innocent. The knowledge contained in this ledger proves that integrity can triumph over tyranny and temptation. The ledger contained detailed coded records of how the judge had secretly manipulated the Salem proceedings, subtly sabotaging evidence and creating legal loopholes to save dozens of innocent people from execution. The ancestor was not a monster, but a hero who lived a life of pretense to execute a moral mission of integrity. Ethan felt an overwhelming rush of inspired relief. The true treasure was this legacy of courage and integrity. Their willingness to sacrifice the physical key proved they were worthy of inheriting this truth. Anya stepped fully into the room, extinguishing her lantern, as the room's soft, permanent light took over. She looked at the judge's final entry, her expression solemn. The test is never truly over, Mr. Vance. You now possess the knowledge of a hidden hero, a legacy of integrity that could inspire thousands. Which choice do you make with the power you now hold? Her question left them with the final, heaviest choice: to keep this inspiring truth safe, or to reveal it to a world that desperately needed to believe in the triumph of conscience. The quiet authority of Anya's final question settled heavily in the library. Ethan and Leah were no longer solving an old riddle. They were facing a new, immense moral responsibility. The judge's legacy of integrity was a powerful, fragile thing. Leah, the pragmatist, was the first to speak. We came here seeking external treasure. We found proof of internal courage. The judge didn't save lives for historical fame. He did it out of deep, personal integrity. She looked at the two condemned doors that were now sealed permanently. The greed and the fear that locked those doors still exist outside. His story is a weapon against them. Ethan, whose worldview had been fundamentally shifted, agreed. The judge had risked everything: his reputation, his life, to uphold his conscience. His legacy was too important to hide. They realized the ultimate choice was to continue the judge's moral mission, not by replicating his secrecy, but by shining a light on his profound example. They would authenticate the ledger and reveal the truth, the story of a true hero of integrity who risked everything for his conscience. Anya simply nodded, her smile confirming their decision. She was not the test giver, but the guardian of the ongoing mission. Ethan and Leah walked out of the chamber not with gold, but with a mission to spread the message of hope and integrity. The doors remained sealed, permanent reminders that the most dangerous traps are those set by our own hearts: greed and fear. Their final choice was to live with the same integrity as the judge. You have followed Ethan and Leah through the entire Salem judgment, watching them battle temptation and fear to uncover the true legacy of integrity. Now tell me, did you manage to discover what the hidden keyword in this story is? The answer required attention to the judge's final, central moral lesson. Did you manage to discover the hidden keyword? Leave your answer in the comments. And if you're ready for the next story with its enigmas, subscribe to the channel and continue binge watching. Thank you for sticking with us until the end.